The Honourable Jerry Browning.
Mr Chairman, I do need to respond to some of the comments made by the previous speaker. I would agree with him that New Zealand does punch above its weight in many international fora. I'd agree with him that New Zealand does have a significantly valued reputation among countries of similar minds when it comes to some of the big issues that the world faces. We do have a voice in forums that is considerably greater than our population might normally or most usually allow. But, Mr Speaker, I think the latter part of that speech about the External Relations Review was fundamentally flawed. The first point is that trust law in New Zealand is there for New Zealanders, not for anyone else. It is there for New Zealanders who, for one reason or another, find it a necessity or prudent to put their assets into a trust. And it's not like that it's unusual. There are large numbers of New Zealanders who choose to do this. And when they do so, they are subject to New Zealand tax laws because they are taxed as the settlor of the trust. So inside the New Zealand structure, there cannot be avoidance in our tax jurisdiction. If Mr Shearer and his colleagues are making a case that we should change those laws and therefore bring in more pernicious laws for New Zealanders in order to protect the tax base of foreign countries, then I think they are seriously missing the point. Seriously missing the point. What Mr Shearer said is that there are trillions of dollars being hidden in New Zealand trusts. That is not true. That is a fundamental misrepresentation of the entire situation. What I would further say is that if there are people from offshore choosing to protect their assets by virtue of a New Zealand trust and they are nominated as the settler, they will pay tax in New Zealand. If that tax means that there's some avoidance in another jurisdiction, it means that other jurisdiction has got its tax laws in such a complicated state that people cannot work effectively with them. And let me give you a small example, Mr Chairman. The first point is that if you are a low-income worker in New Zealand, an income below some $40,000 a year, your tax rate is 17.5%. If you're a very high-income earner in New Zealand, your maximum rate, exclusive of GST, is 33%. If you're a low-income earner in, as I said, under about the $40,000 mark in an average OECD country, your rate is 35%. If you're a high-income earner, it could be 90+%. So you have to say, what are we trying to do here? What the Labor Party are arguing is that because some people take advantage of registering a trust in New Zealand and as settlors paying tax in New Zealand, that we should change the laws in this country to ensure that all New Zealanders are caught up in some higher tax rate. What it signals is the Labor Party have no real perspective on where New Zealand sits in the world and want instead to raise the tax levels in this country to some of those highly pernicious rates. No other conclusion can be drawn from the rubbish that's been talked in the House in the last few days. And the member might want to scream out at the top of his head, read the papers. Well, I've read the papers, and I've got to tell you, he is making a wrong analysis. And I'm sure that as he stalked the halls of the United Nations in recent weeks, with the United Nations jobs adverts in his clenched in his fist, he wasn't saying to those foreign jurisdictions, we're coming after you for your tax rate, Mr Speaker, Mr Chair. I'm sure that is not what he was saying. We do have a strong reputation in New Zealand as being a fair country, a reasonable country where people can live their lives in a peaceable fashion. We are a country that enjoys extraordinary advantageous trading conditions throughout the world because successive governments have chosen that for this country and they've gone aggressively after those trade deals. We have very, very good country-to-country relations, Mr. Chair, with other countries throughout the world. And that is because they look at us and how we operate in this country, no matter who's in government when it comes to external relations, and they see that there is a predictable path, or at least they have up until now. So what we have at the moment is an opposition that is totally opposed to our engagement in Iraq, totally opposed to anything that might, you would say, advantage New Zealanders in a domestic sense through our trust laws, and in general quite confused about a picture around trade because they don't want to support the TPPA. There's two gentlemen over there who do want to support it. One of them is allowed, the other's not allowed. And he's going to tolerate that. He's going to say, no, I'll accept that. I'm prepared to sacrifice my beliefs on the altar of socialism. I'll just give up what I really think, while my benchmate here gets an opportunity to go out and campaign for the mayoralty of Auckland on the basis that he's in favour of a growing economy. Quite an extraordinary situation, Mr. Chair. And I think it's always sad, I think, when external relations of a country becomes caught up in the domestic politics of a country. There will always be policy differences about how there is an interaction, one country to another, one institution to another, that may change with a government. But generally, the flavour of the way a country operates, the reliability of a country, the fact that you can take a country's political statements, or should we say international statements by its politicians, for what it is extremely important. And so it is somewhat disappointing that Mr. Shearer, who has got a significant international background prior to his coming to the House, would deliver a speech today that starts to destroy that level of trust. Mr. Speaker, the government is extraordinary. Look at this. You see over there the Hansard will record the sighs and the moans from people saying, oh, that's not true. Well, stack it up and have a look at it. They don't like the idea that a law that advantages New Zealand is being used by others to advantage their situation. They don't like the TPPA. They're dead against that. Not going to have expanded trading opportunities for New Zealand. They don't want to acknowledge that the scourge of Daesh on the world is a terrorist organisation that could well affect a country like this. Therefore, we should be involved. But no, not from the Labor Party point of view. We don't want to be part of that. And when it comes to a range of other sort of engagements, they are a party that wants to deny their past. This government is extremely progressive. This government recognises that sometimes partisan politics gets set aside when it comes to dealing with our relationships in the international sense. And no better example of that than this week, where the government was quite proud to throw its weight behind the Right Honourable Helen Clark and her bid to become Secretary-General of the United Nations. And I personally think she's got an excellent chance. I think if we look at the various geopolitical arrangements, particularly around Europe, as per say United States, she is in a very strong position, and this government will support her. I wonder what the Labor Party really think about that, because that is a leader, or in her there is a leader who has said yes to the TPPA, yes to a fight against Daesh, and yes to a more international outlook for a country like New Zealand. That is the sort of leadership that kept the Labor Party in power for 9 years. It is the opposite of that that's got them in such a bad state at the present time. Almost leaderless, totally directionless, and almost certainly consigned to a longer period to think about the type of policies that they should be offering to connect to New Zealand. It's sad that it is so starkly shown when it comes to external relations, where we should expect a much higher level of understanding and commitment to us as a nation. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, even this week, we will see the Prime Minister going to a country like China. We've got differences. We make those differences known, but we also know that this is a country that is going to be one of the strongest emerging economies in the world. It already is strong. It will only get stronger. And to be encouraging them to see us in a light that says equals, in a light that says reliable, and a light that says we're interested is very important.
The Honourable Phil Goff.